welcome back to Block TV, where it is time for Blockchain and Booze, that favorite show of the week where we gather the wheelers and dealers of the sphere and try to have them answer questions while staying sober. Joining us today, the victims around the table are Guy Armoni, Strategy Director at BitTax. Hello to you. Good to have you. Returning victim Alexis Davis, CEO and founder at Policy Pup. Hello to you. Raise that glass. Plowing there what you may think is vodka, but it's not, is Mirav Harel. It's vodka, exactly.
Of course it's vodka.
Mirav Harel, blockchain mediator, former COO at Bancor. Lovely to have you back.
Happy
We've
to be
missed you. And last but not least, the man I'm going to have some questions for today, because I think he knows it all, Moshe Joshua, CPO at Black Moon.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, let's jump right into this, okay? Because it's been a big week for Binance. It was the talk of the week amongst a slew of announcements that they kept bringing out. And of course, Binance seems to be positioning itself, to me, like a bank. CZ went online early Wednesday this week to enthusiastically announce the new Binance lending feature. And on the other side of the globe, Alex Mashinsky, CEO of Celsius from New York City, was a bit skeptical about the whole thing. Let's have a listen.
So last Friday we added more assets to margin. Last Saturday we were doing the Launchpad announcements, and then Sunday we finished the Launchpad a lottery draw. Monday we released lending, which is a big feature.
First, after extracting over 700 million in profit last year from its community, it's good to see that Binance is finally trying to give something back. But we all know that this is just a marketing gimmick. It's capped. The total value of this entire promotion is $1.4 million. If you do the math of calculating the coins time the valuation of each coin. And it's really a lottery. So basically the first few hundred people who are going to press the computer as fast as possible are going to get in, and everybody else has to wait until next week until the lottery resets, and hopefully a different set of 100 or 200 people get in. So,
okay, Asher Westrup Evans, our senior correspondent, measured and got in when it was launched. It took exactly 14 seconds, if not a little bit less. For people or bots, I don't know, to get in. I know that we're theorizing. Yeah, it's a theory. First of all, what do you think of the Binance lending feature?
Well, I'm going to go with what you kind of said when you were introducing this. If it quacks like a duck. So it lends like a bank, and it borrows like a bank, and it lets you exchange like a bank. What does that mean that it is?
It's a bank.
Right. And that's kind of interesting because we're seeing the old, I'd say, the traditional financial system, or the way it works, being kind of reproduced in something that is supposed to be the new financial system, right? So how does that work?
Let me even throw another theory at you
It's the first step.
It's the first step towards what?
It's the first step towards the new marketplace of what we consider traditionally to be banks in terms of credit, interbank relationships. I think it's the first step. I wouldn't necessarily call Binance a bank yet. Yet. But I think it's the beginning of a new model. I don't know if Binance has the right answer. I certainly don't think what they did with the lending platform, the way an IEO works, is necessarily something. And he's right about it being a marketing gimmick. But how many investments can you really put out there at some level of risk and get 14-15% returns?
Thank you.
Yeah,
right?
well,
exactly.
Just at a lending rate.
Where the interest rates in the world are now going down.
And the 15% was the thing that staggered me.
Right. Well, the reason why they're giving such high percentages is because they started margin trading a while ago, and so that is directly. It's not like a normal bank where they give you a 2% CD and the bank invested in something even super safer than that. They're using it mostly for margin trading and also for marketing. But the thing that differs them from a bank, and something that I think Alex Mashinsky is not so on point on, is the fact that
he's also the competition in some ways.
Yeah, he is the competition
we have
in
to
a lot
remember
of
that.
ways.
Okay, for the case
He is the competition in a lot of ways, but also, this is Binance's first step into lending. Right. They're not going to open it up with, hey, we're going to do this dramatic $150 million
They're also not
lending
do it at
platform.
3%.
It's what?
They're also not going to do it at 3%.
Right, of course, but you have to keep in mind this is Binance dipping their foot in the pool in a sense. And I think that in the next year or so, you might see this up from $1.5 million for the first bit to more.
But you know, that kind of raises questions. What about reserves? If they're like lending and they're borrowing, right, letting people lend and borrow, how much are they keeping in the reserves, right? And then we've seen what happened to banks before the regulation came around and said, you have to have this and that amount of reserves. And over here, there's a company that would keep these reserves, would keep less of the reserves, more of the reserves. What would happen to the money that people are putting there, right? Like,
that's honestly,
that's
I
the
mean,
question. It's like they're going into
general,
banking, but they don't have the regulations of the banking, and they don't have all the, you know, the stops and the borders that have been put upon the banking
Those
system,
banks.
right?
What do you want to say, Guy?
I'm saying in general, it's true, because the whole industry came to the custodian solutions are not the reason why this industry came about. So I don't know where it is going, but I do know that holding Bitcoin is one thing and custodian solution is another thing.
I completely agree. And then that's one of that leads me to the next question. What have we done in this then? If Binance becomes just the new form of banking, which is, and I'm translating a line here that you all know, it's the same lady with a different hat.
It's worse than the same lady. It's the same lady before the regulation came and put the
stops
in front of the banks, because we've seen what happens when banks did not have regulation. Look at all the financial crises that we've had like throughout the last 100 years. And then they put more rules and more rules to stop the banks from going crazy. And what we're having here is a recreation of the same thing, but without the stops. So what are we doing?
No, and I'm asking you guys this. So something else that happened last week, and that's China announcing its intention on launching what I would call a national digital coin. And the first thing, and we have no knowledge, I'm just theorizing with you guys right now, okay? Because this to me sounds like something that Binance with the Chinese government afterwards can join hands.
I think, you know, go back to what Alex was talking about, and you called it the competition. They're not really the competition, because there is a difference between a decentralized and centralized ledger, right? So to your point in terms of the treasury and in terms of what's backing all this stuff, if it's on a decentralized ledger and it's 100% fully transparent, then there is no issue, right? Binance being a centralized repository as a custody solution has to abide by, you know, the traditional banking model. But I do think what's important, you know, being Binance with the brand that they've been able to build.
They're a big monster, not in a bad way I'm saying this, but they have.
They're the 800-pound gorilla on the exchange side, right? They
exactly.
own the monopoly of, you know, being the front end of it. And for them to be able to say, okay, here we are, we're going to set the rate, the lending rate of Bitcoin, okay, just in terms of the bar rate. I know they did a couple of others with BNB and whatever it was in.
It was just that
ECB,
and Ethereum
Classic.
Yeah, why Ethereum Classic?
It was a surprise, and it explained. We understood later why Ethereum Classic went up. I mean, it went up, and then the announcement came. So
because no one's waiting on Ethereum 2.0 on Ethereum Classic.
But very importantly, from just a financial institutional mindset, the borrow rates of the market and interest rates of the market is the core requirement to be able to develop financial products on top of it.
Right.
So when you have something called a volatility curve, where you add options, or you add any type of derivatives into the marketplace, it all goes back to what's the interest rate. Traditionally, the only way to borrow Bitcoin, just because of its decentralization, and it's like this inverse relationship, right? Like I can own it, but I can't lend it because of the ownership rights and the self-custody rights, right? So backing it with Binance credit, even at a small level as a first step towards setting a market rate, I think is the important news item that's coming out of this thing. Because, for example, Backed is going to go live, right? They're going live with their custody solution this week.
Say.
Or whatever, doesn't matter.
I'm hoping, because we've been
like,
well, they say, because last time I was here, we were talking about that other startup that beat Back to the punch.
They didn't.
And then the next day after this program, it turns out that they spoke too soon.
Well, you have other ones. You have LedgerX.
We had to do a whole retrack on that one. I mean, if anybody's going to do it, it's Backed, but I hope it doesn't happen.
They're not the only ones. There's Backed, there's LedgerX, there's also True Digital, the ones that I'm talking to, at least, you know, just the guys that I know that are have approval from CFTC for Bitcoin types of physical back futures.
Backed is positioned.
But a physical back future can only work if you have a real yield curve and a real future curve to it, which requires an interest rate curve. And I think Binance basically coming out with some 12, 15%, which is like hard money lending, analogy. I think that is a real standard. Now all those other guys are like backed, and everybody have to sit there and say, how are we going? Is that going to be is that going to be the future role? I don't know. What's going to happen institutionally, if there is an institutionally?
If there's an institution, makes you wonder. Maybe that's why.
And I think the timing of this that Binance did was perfect.
You think it's because of BACT?
No, I think that the next layer of institutional focus is going to be on these physical-backed futures and then mechanisms, and they're the ones setting the rate of the marketplace.
I think, go ahead.
I honestly think it puts Binance in the place, like Mirav was saying. It's building it's not necessarily per se a bank, but if you look at stock trading accounts where you can buy and sell, regular stocks on Wall Street and whatnot, it's almost self-regulating in and of itself. Binance is acting as a crypto trading platform the same way that a stock trading platform would act. And it's setting a trend because we're still in this dramatically big gray zone for where crypto is. This is the time
to do it. If the 800-pound gorilla in the room is going to set the tone, then they hope that the regulators will follow because they're creating a fait accompli. That said, will they be let? I mean, will somebody let them do that? And what's behind it? Which moves us to the next item.
It kind of connects to the rest of that.
This is which moves us straight to, and listen, there is a big race going on right now. Apropos Binance announcing Venus, apropos Libra, which somebody today off the record told me that everybody, by all calculations, Libra is 2 years away from launching.
Don't forget, and also Walmart.
And Walmart, exactly. But New York Times, I love it when the sphere crosses over into the mainstream media. The New York Times this week on the agenda, and approaching fast, deemed Telegram's promise of the gram, which is getting much less hype than Libra, but as reported this week in the New York Times, and I'm quoting, unlike Facebook, which released public plans for its digital money long before the first token was ready, Telegram has largely proceeded in secrecy. Now, while Facebook's big cryptocurrency plans have hit a wall with regulators, another big social network, the Telegram, is charging ahead. Telegram has told investors that it is planning to send out the first batches of its coin, the gram, within the next 2 months, guaranteed. I believe they have to, according to 3 investors who have spoken with Telegram recently, but went, of course, as sources. The spokesperson of Telegram was contacted by the New York Times and never responded back. I mean, they're doing this entirely differently. And it all leads me back to Pavel Durov, who I find to be one of the most fascinating people in the sphere, the man behind Telegram, due to launch at the end of October, per that report. He lives in self-imposed exile. He gave a rare interview in 2015 to TechCrunch about Telegram. Let's listen to him and see if he's heading in that right way and why.
What is the point of Telegram when in a world where there are so many other messaging platforms?
It's a good question, but to put it simply, it doesn't matter how many other messaging apps are out there if all of them suck, right? So
which ones suck for you?
For me and for most of my team, WhatsApp sucked most. We actually started as a...
You say WhatsApp sucks?
Absolutely. And I can elaborate on that.
Please do.
Sure. Well, look, we're living in 2015. We're supposed to have flying cars and everything right now.
Jetpacks?
Absolutely. But if you have WhatsApp on your phone and your battery is low and your phone goes dead, suddenly you can't get access to your messages. It's over. It's not cross-device. It doesn't have cross-device sync. You can't send documents on big media. There are lots of limitations in group chats, in your communication, and it's not private. So I'm not sure I was a big fan of WhatsApp about 3 or 2 years ago, and I'm not sure I am now.
You mentioned privacy. Now you've made a big claim about Telegram being having the ability to be end-to-end encrypted.
Sure.
I mean, that's obviously a laudable claim, especially we're living in a kind of post-Snowden world. Sure. But what does it do for the business, in a sense? Where's the business proposition in encryption?
Well, look, I had a friend, back then when I was living in Russia, I had a friend, and she told me that she was presented with a printout of her WhatsApp messages in the police department. So they basically intercepted and decrypted her messages, and she told me they tried to use it to blackmail her. So privacy is not something that is relevant only to business users, but business is most affected because they could be blackmailed. Rich people could be blackmailed, and their information is more valuable. It could be compromised.
Now, this is Pavel Durov in 2015. He gave one other interview since then. I mean, other than reports and announcement that he brings out. Fascinating character. That was the idea behind him launching Telegram back at the time. If the Gram launches as promised, it seems to be exactly within 2 months. Okay. 250 million users approximately at this point are on Telegram. That's a huge base. And the New York Times dubbed it, tapped on something that's quite fascinating. Can this be the use case? But Pavel Durov is very adamant about, how should I put this in French? He doesn't give a shit about regulators.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, he doesn't play by the regular rules.
Exactly.
That's not true.
Tell me.
Why not?
That's not true. The Gram was listed as a utility token, and they spent a lot of effort to ensure that they are not a security. They fit the model of everything that has been proven to be a utility token, including Bitcoin and Ethereum. And quite frankly, as much as everyone's focused on the US and the SEC and the recognition that they are the leading regulated authority that everybody has to follow, it's a big world. Okay,
I think
you want to
the world's
compare it to
catching up to
Facebook?
that notion.
Yeah, you want to like at a certain
But
point.
it's still listen. It's still positioned at number one.
Well,
go ahead.
But it's an
Facebook's
island.
very different though, because Facebook's actually got a conglomeration, like what is it, the Libra Association, that is overseeing and regulating and has a reserve and whatnot.
Or
Telegram,
so they've promised.
or so they've promised, right?
Yeah.
Telegram does not have a reserve.
Right.
It doesn't act as a it doesn't act as a fiat, but
Can
in
you
the,
today
in the
say?
form of a cryptocurrency.
Can you today say that the Libra token will come to be?
No, of course not.
So
I
then,
mean,
then there's no conversation.
No, I mean, there is a
comparison.
conversation on what people are trying to attempt to build.
Yeah.
Telegram is building something that is not backed, not reserved, based
correct.
on what people assess its value to be.
Yeah.
And Libra is having a reserve fiat currency, multiple reserve fiat currencies, backing this cryptocurrency. I mean, it's
Let me ask you a question.
It's
Digital
laughable.
friggin',
it's not-
It's
yeah,
laughable to
it's
say
not a
crypto.
crypto.
It's digital.
What's the
but
LIT token backed by?
LIT being
The Libra Association token.
Oh, well, I mean,
The Libra investment token.
okay.
Right? It's just.
I mean, that sounds
it's just another.
I mean, even just
game
saying
that-
Libra investment token makes it sound like a security more than just
Oh,
a random
I
digital.
think that for sure is a security. And if anybody thinks that that's not going to be a security, they're
no, of
crazy.
course, but the paths that they're taking are dramatically different.
Dramatically different. I agree with that.
And
But
so,
I think they're
in
still
January-
racing to the same thing.
Exactly. She's totally
They're
right.
all- they're
There is a
all-
race.
I think that right now, and we're going to see this, I think, in the next item, that I think there's a race about creating the next global currency. Okay, that would change the U.S. dollar, some would say, or the euro,
Entirely.
or Bitcoin itself. And I think that right now what we're seeing is that the giants are kind of like, on the line, and they're
that's
kind of
well,
rushing
No,
forward.
I'm not
even-
going to stop
and-
you. I want to pose the question on what Mirav just said. Because what if the Gram gets to the final line first, which it seems to be doing?
I think that in general terms, you can say that the way Telegram are doing things, they are more aligned with the crypto ecosystem and the crypto values. And I think that this would give them an advantage in terms of people adopting it, people from the cryptosphere
From the
adopting
cryptosphere.
it. Yeah,
Oh.
I agree. And these
Okay.
are the people that are really acting now in the markets. A
Right.
lot of people from traditional markets are standing on the fence and
Right.
looking to see what is going to happen. But people now that are in the market, they're the people, the main actors, I think.
But they're the only. That's the only community that matters.
No, it
Because
doesn't.
the mainstream users are just going to use additional functionality that's going to be presented to them with a fancy screen and a button, and they don't care about what the background technology is. But the guys building those apps and the guys building those programs are the ones that have to know all of the infrastructure layers and how it works and everything else.
Yeah, but no mainstream user
that's not the only
cares about
question.
that. That's
exactly.
the point.
And the whole issue is that, okay, so there's 250 million people on Telegram right now, but there are 7 billion people in the world.
Okay.
Okay, so great. So let's say that Telegram is the first, and it does create what it wants to be creating.
And
still
it
does
reaches
not mean,
those
and it reaches
250
those
million, start
250 million
using
people
Right.
that are already, most of them in the crypto space.
Let me ask
Okay,
you, how many Bitcoin wallets are there today?
I don't know how many Bitcoin wallets.
25 million?
25
Okay.
million.
So
What
it's
does it say?
10x
Okay.
in terms of
but-
the number
but
of
the race
wallets
is not that.
available on a network.
Wait, I want to just make sure that we're on the
This
same
is
page.
crazy.
The race is not getting the crypto people.
Yeah.
The race is getting the hands on the monetary system of the world. It's being the #1 currency,
You're
like
talking
the
about
US
a reserve
dollar.
currency?
Exactly.
Well-
and that's the question. Who is going? It's not only that. The question is this: who is going to be the coin? Which is going to be the coin that people are going to be shopping with? I'm not just talking about the crypto
Okay.
people. I'm talking about the regular people. Okay,
Hey,
the
Mother,
mainstream
I
people.
have a silly
Okay?
question, just for
Please,
conversational
go.
purposes.
No, you're
okay?
dreaming.
Okay.
What's stopping the United States? And I know we have this thing about what's going on with the Bank of England, right?
Yeah, it's gonna.
Yeah.
We're
Right?
gonna go.
Yeah,
in
we're
a
gonna
second.
go
All
there.
of you
I
guys.
don't want to jump, but
Because all of our subjects today are connected.
But to your point, and I think it's a good point, and I'm not discounting it. It's just a matter of, that was the original purpose of Bitcoin, right? To
That's the
say,
race, and
here's a challenge to the reserve currency of the world. But what is stopping the United States from just saying, here's a digital coin on a decentralized ledger, right? They can spin it up in a day and say, we just announced to allow every bank, and through some SIPC or FDIC insurance, that you can convert your dollars into some US dollar backed coin backed by the US government. Chop chop.
I mean, there is so
But
much
why-
that's stopping
why
the
is
United
that?
States
Yeah,
from doing
but
that.
Why?
wait, but
I
that's
mean, they
not-
can't
that's
agree
not
on
the race.
anything
Wait
right
a
now in the
minute.
United States.
Do you really think money is physical today?
No, of course it's not.
Money's
but-
already
But
electronic.
that's not-
I
that's
think
not
it's
the question.
same-
I don't
it's
even
the
think that's the
same
question.
thing that we have today with the dollar, and I think that even if they'll do it, they will encounter the same problems that we have today. And I think that in terms of what we're seeing today, going forward into recession as the market shows.
As the market's showing you.
This is that's like the last conversation topic today, and I don't mean to really jump ahead too much.
No, we're
but, like,
jumping into the Bank
But
of
wait, we
England.
didn't
Into the Bank
finish
of England,
this
like,
because,
yes,
I
go.
still have something else to say.
Please.
Yeah, Mayor Robert's completely right on that. It is a race to see who's going to be the money of the internet. In a sense.
Exactly.
This non-sovereign
And not
state
only
currency.
the crypto people, not only for the crypto people. That's
Right.
the
What's going to be easy to use for our parents, as we discussed earlier, our grandparents and whatnot. And Mayor Rob said something that was really interesting in terms of the terminology. She said it's the giants that are racing towards this. Walmart, Facebook. Who's the other one?
China.
WeChat's also got something going on, right?
Binance, Bitcoin itself.
Bitcoin's got a long. I did some math in the car. It's really interesting, but
I know. I don't think Bitcoin's going to win it. I'm sorry, folks. But we'll
it depends.
We're gonna
It really
That was my
depends,
next
but-
question.
But
Can we
but
say
Mayor Rob-
that Bitcoin and Ethereum is a
But
failure?
wait, I want to hear what
really no. Ethereum's a different story, but
To the
but Mayor
point
Rob-
of the reserve currency.
Mayor Rob said something really interesting is that the tech giant, you said that the
giants
giants are vying
racing.
for this.
Right.
And who are these giants that we're referring to? Consumer product companies or companies that regular people are using,
Right.
not the Federal Reserve, not the Bank of England, not these traditional financial institutions. And we've got these tech companies that have the outreach to reach all these people,
And they have more reach than
right.
Telegram. I mean, Telegram, as
Right.
big as Telegram is, it's still smaller
It's
than
true,
Facebook.
but
Yeah.
it is, but it's getting to the finish line first.
Right.
most likely.
But the point being is,
getting to
it's
the
not
finish-
coming
but getting
from our
to the
traditional
finish
players.
line. Okay, so this is the question here, because we spoke about this earlier when we were sitting in the room, that it's in, how did you say, the
network
last
effect.
winner, the last one standing. It's not the question of who was the first one that comes in.
It's the
because
last
it
man
could be-
standing.
It could be Bitcoin, that it was the first one in.
Right.
It could be Telegram, it could be Libra, it could be any one of them. The question is, who are we going to be seeing in 2 or 3 years as the last one standing? Which one is going to be the token or the coin or the cryptocurrency or the digital currency or whatever currency that we're going to be people doing the shopping and transferring money from one another with?
I have an answer for you.
And wait, it could be that it's not going to be a winner takes it all in this situation.
Okay, that's fine.
It could be that there are 10,000 different currencies and everybody's going to be using different ones. Right. And then it kind of puts a question about, all of the, we talked about this in earlier meetings that we had, all the monetary theories that we have for the last 100 years, right, about economics and everything. If we have so many different tokens, that's going to be changing, right? Yep. But the question is going to be a lot of tokens or one token that's going to be a winner takes it most.
It's the game of coins.
It's the game. Oh my God, I love that.
I actually.
I love that.
Did you just coin that?
Somebody interviewed this this week.
Oh, that is the game of coins.
It is pretty historical. If you go to the Museum of Israel in Tel Aviv, and you look back at history, different regional powers at the time, those world powers, but regional powers had different coins. If you wanted to pay your taxes towards the state or towards your religious temple, you had a different token to pay your coins.
Guy is the monetary historian here.
We saw it also in China, in the
States,
and even
in
in Machatzit shekel in Bet HaMikdash.
Special coins.
Back to
this idea of tokenization.
Before Mama speaks, I just want to finish up one thing Meir was bringing up that's important. You're bringing up a question twofold. In the first sense, it's a network effect question, right? So is Telegram big enough to have a network effect? If they just bought themselves a 2-year window before Libra even comes live, how many users are going to be on Telegram 2 years from now? Okay, so if it's a billion users then.
We saw an interview with Dura from 2015. At the beginning of that interview, and I cut that out, they had about 16 million, okay? Today they have nearly 300 million.
That's crazy.
So, I mean, if...
In 4 years.
Exactly, in 4 years.
What's a better
so
question is, if you have 300 million on Telegram, 2.5 billion on Facebook, another 1.5 billion on WhatsApp, another billion on Google Hangouts. Are there like 30 billion people in the world? Like it just added up. Like it's the same freaking people.
It's the same people that play the people.
What are you talking about?
The better question is,
it's the same people.
I've never needed to transfer money on WhatsApp. I've never needed to transfer money on Facebook.
Need and ability.
Wait, no, but the thing is
very different things.
No, but considering recent news,
you cannot do that.
You haven't been able to do it yet.
Of course, but in recent
go
news,
tell that to WeChat users.
Hold on.
Please.
I know,
in recent news,
because they have the functionality and it's a proven model.
So, but I've got a different question, and something that regulators are more worried about is that in recent news, the founder of a weed distribution Telegram company, Telegrass, was arrested in the Ukraine. And then
they're selling weed.
Right, fine. But the question is,
it's illegal.
What are people actually using the gram for?
In some states.
Transfer? What are people actually using Bitcoin for?
Wait, this is a really important question. What you're saying. You're raising a really important
what are
point.
people using Bitcoin for? And answer your own question.
They're using it because it's acting as gold today, not because they're buying grams of weed.
But
there's a very big inherent difference.
Weed is also bought with fiat and not just with Bitcoin.
No,
I'm saying,
but within Telegram, which is interestingly also called a gram, so finally the price of a gram is not just going to be narcotics, but it's, the question is, what's Telegram going to use their token towards buying services? Can you buy plane tickets
I have
with a gram?
the same answer for you that I have for Meirav in our reserve currency.
But hold on, there is a concern. Slate had an article about Telegram, that the idea behind it, Pavel Dura, very much a privacy and freedom advocate, I buy it. But the people who play on Telegram, for example, in the United States, there's a huge group of alt-right fascist psychos who can deliver their messages just through Telegram.
Why can't you do that?
How
does that put responsibility on Telegram?
It doesn't put the responsibility on Telegram. The point is that is what it is associated with.
That's a marketing.
I know.
That could also be PR, yeah. But
that's a PR point.
But the point being is that without just being able to converse with encryption and not being able to be monitored, will Telegram actually be able to move forward past sending money from myself to you or you to myself?
Or PayPal or something
exactly.
like that.
Where they actually, for example, Kik is trying to do something where they actually use the token for actual utility outside of value of, transfer value between friends. Will you be able to use the gram to buy plane tickets, to pay for drinks, to go to a restaurant?
Coin, theoretically, you could. Or with the Walmart
coin,
you could. And that's where the difference is. Like, where are they going to, like, it's like, if I'd say like the winner takes it all, theoretically, in the, where I think everybody's aiming to, is to be a coin that could be used like the US dollar everywhere on anything, and could be transferred, like we're saying, on WeChat,
So
right?
I have
But
two,
they
two,
would
and the
stick-
question
there
is,
are two really
I
important
wanna-
points I
of
want to
course.
say here. One second.
Okay.
You
But then we're
brought up-
moving ahead.
Okay, you
To
brought
the same part.
yes, ma'am.
This is
Yes,
really
ma'am.
interesting.
Yes, ma'am. You
Raises
hold
so
on.
many
I'm gonna
questions.
drink to that. Here we go. You brought up the reserve currency issue.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put a standard out there that says, as long as any coin that you're talking about, it doesn't matter, Libra, Shmibra, it doesn't make a difference. Okay.
Venus. Just kidding.
If you're using it
The Zucky coin.
in US dollar valuation terms, okay, to purchase stuff online,
Yeah.
then the US dollar reserve currency conversation doesn't leave us, right? The same way that you're holding your liquid gold, right, in terms of Bitcoin, and it's valued in US dollar terms, it has no utility. That's the answer. So to answer your question in terms of what can you do with grams, in terms of the difference between that and like a Libra coin based business, which is basically just a payments scale in a US dollar functionality, or at least at the valuation of the ETF that they've, the money ETF that they created. You know, Telegram on the blockchain, in terms of the way that the TON network works, you can build digital services. And how you value those digital services, like data hosting, like DNS servers, like a lot of different digital services. So you want to talk about Walmart and consumer products that has something in the physical world, most probably, I would guess, it's going to continue being valued in US dollars. And the reserve currency
I'm not
doesn't
sure
go
about
away.
that.
I'm not so sure about that, but
I'm not
before
sure about
we're going to
that.
continue for that in a second. I want you, because Alexis, poor man, has an empty glass,
Oh,
and I want
no.
you to transfer the bottle to him.
Game of Thrones, I drink and I know things.
Yeah.
Game of coins. Game of
Here,
tokens.
fill your glass a little bit for anybody who wants that, because I'm entering the next one, which maintains the same discussion. We're going straight to Carney.
Yeah.
And Carney and the dollar question.
Yeah.
And that's an obvious answer to Bitcoin fans that I'm not buying. And no, fill up your glass and then move the bottle back.
My parents would be so proud.
I know. You do what the blonde lady says.
And it's
Thank
so
you.
good, like, when
Close
you-
the bottle. Lovely.
When you want
there
to
you
take
go.
loans
And
in
bring
the
it back.
conservative world. And
Right, I know. It's like,
and then-
hey, like,
and then kind of like, look at him, he's drinking on the air.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Mom, I
okay.
need to go
We're
sleep
so
early. I gotta drink
proud.
tomorrow.
Everybody listening to me. Cryptocurrency debates entered mainstream once again in the last week and a half, and I'm telling you guys, we're in the race with none other than the Bank of England's Governor Mark Carney. Quite the prolific guy, by the way. This is one of these like really smart Canadians who somehow managed to get himself into that position. He was speaking at the Challenges for Monetary Policy Banking Conference. It's a big conference. It happens annually in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Carney took aim at the US dollar's destabilizing, I'm quoting him, destabilizing role in the world of economy. And in the same venue, he then explained the idea behind that statement. Let's have a listen.
Give us the thumbnail. Why can't the dollar be the global currency?
Okay, the dollar is the global currency. We know that. The challenge is that the U.S. share of the global economy has been reducing. The dollar's share of payments, not just financial assets, but payments, a lot of payments between countries that have nothing to do with the U.S. are in dollars. And what happens in situations like we're in today, where the U.S. economy, to its credit, is relatively strong, is doing better, and the Fed has been doing the right thing, which is, they've adjusted policy, they tightened policy as it was strengthening. Now they're making, the Fed is doing the right thing, but they have adjusted and policy is relatively strong. That means rest of world policy is tighter than it needs to be, and that feeds back on the U.S. economy in a way that ultimately slows this economy. And it leads to a substandard outcome. And in a world where you only have limited policy space, it's a dangerous place to be. And so the trade issues we're talking about are reinforced by the structure of the monetary system.
Okay, Carney, and I think we all discussed this was going on. I was on vacation when he said that, but coming back, I don't call it explosive, but it actually, yes. You know
I enjoy how you call this work.
God, hey, it's a startup. People, it's a startup, and I think this should be, sold as an idea. But that said, explosive. He is the governor of the Bank of England. It shows an understanding. Speaking of which, we're all sitting here on the week that the newly elected Prime Minister of England has just suspended democracy on the way to Brexit, and Brexit apparently is going to happen without a deal, which might throw that country into quite the disarray. And maybe we're heading towards that, not just recession, but that point in time where people will be looking for the alternatives. But this is the governor of the Bank of England saying, you know, a month and a half before Brexit or whatever the heck is going on, we got to steer away from the dollar. What does he know that we don't? What does that do?
Right, because I think it has to do something with interest, right?
Yep.
There's an interest in there.
There has to be. What are our theories?
Interest
there has
like
to be.
a rate or
There's
interest?
No.
Interest as like a sovereign.
There's an agenda.
There is an agenda behind this.
You don't say something like this.
Right, if there's no agenda.
If there's no agenda behind it. That's, you know, and in this setting, think of the setting. It's federal banks gathering in the United States. It's one of the, very little women, by the way.
We were just mentioning the unpolitically correct thing, okay, that we were saying here, is that if you notice all of this,
it's a bunch of like, oh, this is going to sound really bad, so forgive my political future, Mirov.
It's okay, no. We're kind of like having a hard time spitting out the elephant in the room, that it's all men.
Oh, it's all
men.
It's all older.
White.
It's really harder
Men.
for me to say because like I try and build,
Men.
you know, I'm trying to also like move forward in the world, but
Listen
it's
to
all a
yourself.
bunch
Oh
of.
my God, I'm gonna sound like a feminist and somebody will
No,
hold me
but
back.
like it's hard because
Come on,
like, you
Mom.
know, like.
Yeah, I said I'm going to say this.
I'll say
No,
it.
it's if you look at it, it's a bunch of like Jackson Hole. Like the fact that it was
Jackson
actually
Hole,
set in Jackson
Wyoming.
Hole. Jackson Hole, Wyoming is in the middle of nowhere. We keep our nukes right next to it. It's a bunch of it's a gathering of like, and I actually lean libertarian like crazy, but it's a bunch of older white men who are deciding fiscal policy for the rest of the world.
And it's been,
and it doesn't. And the thing that I think is bigger than that.
We're 50% of us, of women.
The thing that I think is bigger than that is that you've got the governor of the Bank of England, who is from this country. Like, if you want to look way back into history, like the United States is like some sort of like, you know, adopted little child of England, and you've got this cryptocurrency opportunity to move forward and recontrol world finance and commerce, where the United States dollar looks like it's in decline, where the United States president looks to not be in control of himself, especially on Twitter, and England might have this opportunity to reinsert itself as a hegemonic power in financing control, especially if you look at the way London operates.
I know. The only thing I'll say to that, one thing stands in the way, then I think these are fascinating time, both for every digital coin or for cryptocurrency, because digital coins aren't necessarily cryptocurrencies, that, you know, things are going to happen in Britain in the next 2 months that will affect the economy of the world.
The world, yeah.
And the governor of the Bank of England knows that, okay? Because Boris Johnson, as of the taping of this segment, is not taking any hostages.
No,
Okay.
he's smart. He knew how to get into that position. That means that he knows what he's doing. And the question is, what's the agenda there?
Also, keep in mind the British people voted for this. They're being under regulation of the EU, and the Brits have never. You know, I've got British friends, I've got European friends, and they are dramatically different. And the fact that England wants out of the EU.
Not all of it.
But they not all of it, and they voted for it. They'll have to come up with their agreements here and there, but it's got to move forward because for right now, it's just thrown England into a gray scale of chaos.
A gray scale of chaos may cause more. What does it do to that next? He was talking about a digital way of financing, which, as you said, we're already there.
It changes nothing.
Okay, tell me more.
I mean, let's say they virtualize the pound.
Yeah.
Okay. How does that change? And now you have pound-based borderless payments through Facebook or through Telegram.
I don't think that's what he said.
It doesn't matter.
He said it needs to be unrelated to an agenda of governments that have agendas to do with their country.
Sounds a lot like Libra.
Sounds
Oh.
One, or like Bitcoin, or like Bitcoin.
So you want to know what's an agenda? Maybe he goes out there. You know, I could be a little bit, you know, teethy here, but maybe he goes out there and he's just laying it up and saying, hey, you know, Facebook, you know, stop going down to Washington. Come to England, Bank of England. We'll help you.
I'm your reserve buddy.
Let's go. Maybe Facebook paid him?
That could be a nice agenda.
Oh,
that is first of all.
Well, that is a whole.
That's a theory. But even
the point is, even talking about it means nothing until there's something.
No, of course, but the talk,
right?
But the talk leads to further talk, which leads to policy, which leads to bills that are proposed. Exactly, to action.
You just gave a highlight to booze on blockchain. blockchain on booze.
Well, a little bit, but
my
point
summary, like you just gave a title to it.
No, well, the point being is though, is that like this is not really, you know, to take it back to who's racing to be the reserve currency of the future. This is a race to who controls the financial backing of the future, and for the first time in over 70 years, there is an opening to take that away from the U.S.
Do you really think England has a chance in hell at that?
Do I think that they could have controlled the entire world?
Okay,
So
maybe they collaborate with Telegram or with Libra.
Or maybe they collaborate with China.
But then that's China, that's another government. But you asked about.
So my point is that fiat, from a government standard, fiat doesn't go away. You can virtualize it, you can digitize it. It makes no difference. It's still going to be Great British pounds. It doesn't matter.
That's fine, but it's Great British pounds that are in the world where 1 billion people exist in, 2 billion people exist in, not necessarily.
Versus what?
Versus
what's your alternative statement?
As the world moves towards a digital economy in third world countries and everywhere else in terms of
do you really think it's technology stopping electronic payments going cross border?
No, of course
bank to bank?
No, we don't. But folks, I
think that technology will aid a new era of financial inclusion.
You think two banks can get a couple of programmers together to build an API to send money to each other?
No, of course not. But the way of doing financial transactions in the past is now migrating.
Okay, gentlemen,
who controls that?
Gentlemen, I want you to raise your glasses. Gentlemen, and one kick-ass lady who, by the way, I just want to say,
is drinking vodka.
Oh yeah,
of course. Completely right. Don't ever hold back on being a feminist, okay? I never want to hear that again. There are not enough.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm not saying there are never enough women in the room, okay?
And there are never enough male feminists.
Male advocates.
Thank you, male advocates of feminism.
That's
what we're going to raise our glass. I'm going to ask you one last question. What do you think about Bitcoin next week? Hitting 11?
No.
Hitting 11?
So I'm not sure. You know, you can never know where Bitcoin
what is
heading.
Just give me a number.
That's a good disclaimer.
As I hear the discussion around here, I think I'm the only maximalist around the time. But because everybody is talking about who is the next one to control the economy, and I'm looking about on decentralization, and I think this is the only thing that is interesting. This is why I think that the Bitcoin price is not relevant for the short term, and the turmoils that are happening in Bitcoin.
Honey, I'm trying to just get a bet.
so I think
I know.
I'm trying to be.
It doesn't matter.
The short term is not interesting. I think
this
the
is
long
what
term
I'm
is the
saying.
question.
I'm not betting on the short term. I'm betting on what we discussed earlier. And I think that we are heading in our way to a serious economic downturn, and that Bitcoin will have the test of its life, and if it will.
We never touched on recession, but we are over time, guys. You've done such a great job.
This is the best topic of them all.
Let's talk about recession.
Okay, this is my last question.
Per se,
last question: who thinks that recession is underway?
Yeah,
yes or no?
This is almost entrapment of a question.
It's not.
Because basically
a report, guys, we're going to wrap with this. A report last week stated that the recession is 75% assured. Okay, that's a major economist. Do you think that's right?
Negative interest rates and VIX futures. The answer is yes, undoubtedly.
Okay, what do you think?
I think recessions are always in the future because they always come at some point.
But
I don't know how soon.
Is this around the corner?
I've been thinking this for the last 2 years, but I've been wrong, so I don't know. Right? It could be that we're already there.
Iffy.
Economic ups and downs come in waves.
Is recession around the corner?
Prepare yourself for it, but try and take advantage of the best.
You think recession's around the corner?
Okay.
Sure. I mean,
the winner gets a trip to China.
Monetary policy.
During recession?
Thank you. To culminate the trade war. Raise your glasses. This was Blockchain and Booze. You were fabulous.
Yeah, exactly.
Salut. This was Blockchain and Booze. We are BLOCKTV.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.